Welcome to a living legend among us. I have Mr. Joe Williams, who is killing the game. Joe and Allison run this amazing program for speakers, and this is for you if you want to take your communication game to the next level. Now, who is Joe? Well, Joe is Tony Robbins' right-hand man. He worked with him initially to get the business up and running, and he's spoken on stage with Tony, but now Joe runs a phenomenal program about really taking your gift of communication to the highest level possible. Now, Joe, let's kick things off. First and foremost, thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. The question is, what is a quote or a mantra that fires you up?
It's kind of funny. I've got a plaque hanging up of it on the wall behind me here. I have this saying that I kind of got known for years ago, and for some reason it stuck. It's kind of a silly little saying, but it was be badass every day. Because, I really believe that if you're going to do something in life, don't be like everybody else. Don't be gray. Don't be vanilla. Be full, vibrant color, and do it with some fun. Do it with some attitude. Do it a little tongue-in-cheek. Don't take yourself too seriously, and just be a badass if you're going to do something. That's really what I think life is about.
I love that. Love that. I'm actually staring at badass every day in the background, and I totally agree. It's in every industry there's just like the regular average, and it's like the badass, the rainbow orange sherbet. Don't be vanilla. Don't be mediocre. So it's a great way to kick things off.
Yep. And there's so many people now who are just really amazing, great at what they do within the speaker, author, expert, for lack of a better term, world, yourself included. And it's easy to get lost in the mix if we don't have something that really sets us apart. And that's my fun little reminder for myself and for clients. Just be a badass if you're going to do it. Find your little corner, your little speck of the world that you're the absolute only one that does what you do, and rock that out.
That is amazing. And speaking of being the best at what you do, I hear your name often. This guy, Joe Williams. Joe, he has his speaker boot camp. He has his programs, the best in the world. Like, whoa, I got to get this guy on my show. This guy, he's got a reputation. And one thing that a lot of people say is you have this amazing event that flourishes a massive transformation for speakers to get in touch with their communication gift, to understand the business side of speaking, and to become world-class. Because there are a lot of people that do what you do, but they don't offer the transformation that you offer. So I want to touch upon that just in terms of having this powerful reputation for results.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm very, very lucky that way, and lucky to have some good buzz around what we do. AJ, I'm going to say that probably my way of working with people as speakers simply came out of my inability as one myself when I started out. I grew up painfully shy in the shadow of a father who was a minister and a great speaker himself. And so it was something, frankly, that I never wanted to do myself. Although I was a businessman, I've started over a dozen companies myself, took the first one public when I was 26 years old in 1996, a long distance and phone service reselling company. And, I was called upon, though, to speak. And so I did the trial and error method. This is as a response to your question directly. I did the trial and error method. And, dude, that is a long, painful way to learn the skill of being outstanding on stage, and a long road to find your own natural, unique talent, strength, ability, and place in that arena. And I really beat the hell out of myself for 6 or 8 years, just awfully, gutting it out to the point where I was physically ill. And so when I started to get what some people, I guess, would say was kind of good, in my work with Tony and others, I thought there's got to be a better way. And honestly, when I started teaching people to speak, I stumbled across it, and I found out that, sure enough, in a few immersive days, where you've got somebody who will really take you under their wing and coach you one-on-one, not just sit you in a room and talk to you about how to speak. But when I work with people, the reason we get the results that you're talking about is because I work with very small groups or with people one-on-one. And it's up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down for a 3 days, 4 days, something like that, immersive environment. And we just make, sounds like a cliche, but quantum leaps with people because it is so hands-on. It is so experiential. It's like learning how to swim. You can't sit on the side of the pool and listen to a seminar about how to swim and be able to do it. You got to get in the water. And once you have it, then you have it for life as well. And so, it's a little corner of the world that I really fit into well in, as well as all the other stuff that I've done with Tony and others.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the major consensus I'm getting from some really influential people, some friends I have in the industry. They mentioned, wow, when I went to Joe's events, like I really got to play all out and I was really immersive. I think sometimes people could go to an event and they could learn theory,
Yes.
but they're not implementing, they're not in the fire. And
Yes.
that's where you learn that immersive process. Because I know you have an event called Master Your Message. And that is like essentially when people are coming, they're not just sitting down taking notes, they're playing all out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's the newest incarnation of my work in this arena. And it is not only from the standpoint of the skill set of being able to walk into any room for the rest of your life and know how to move those people, those souls that have given us in 2018, and beyond, as we sit here, people giving us their time and attention, whether it's in a live speaking event or something like that, or on a podcast like this, or on video and live casting and so forth, to get time and attention, I believe we owe people the gift of bringing our absolute best, bringing it, and really shaping and moving and stirring them emotionally to think about the world, their life, and to do ultimately things differently as a result of the time that they spend with us. And so that becomes the goal for anybody that I work with, is beyond a shadow of a doubt, you'll know exactly how to do that for the rest of your life.
I love that. I love that. For a guy like me, I love live events. They changed my life. And so far I've done about 20 seminars, and I'm a constant student. And I am for sure going to your event.
Awesome.
Because it's that 1%, Of course, I working on my storytelling. I'm creating, different skills for my communication. I started doing stand-up comedy. But the stuff that I would learn from you would take my seminars, my live events, but even my videos to the next level, because there's two types of people. Let's say they're listening to this. Someone like me that does live events, or they're committed to do a lot of public speaking, or someone who maybe doesn't want to do any live events, and maybe they just want to be a powerful communicator, go on Facebook Live, go on YouTube, and just share, just coach in front of masterminds per se. But is this event for, let's say, someone who's just kind of starting out, a little nervous, and to someone who's seasoned, maybe they've done seminars under their belt?
Absolutely. Yes. The answer is yes. I work with everyone from, in fact, the very first time I did an event in this space, one of my first speaker boot camps, it was back in the early 2000s. I had a young lady who came to the event, unbeknownst to me. I didn't realize her husband had left her with 3 small children. She lived in the United Kingdom, in the UK, outside of London, and had left her. And she came to this event just because of the promise of hearing that if she became a professional speaker, she could make, a few $1,000s a day. Now, ultimately, she made a lot more than that. That's the end of the story. She came to the event, though, and collapsed on stage, her first speaking exercise, first time ever speaking publicly, collapsed on stage crying in the fetal position. And we took her and built her back up, and she actually became one of the most successful female speakers in the UK for women's empowerment within the workplace. I've worked with everybody from someone like that, who literally falls down and cries at the thought of speaking, all the way up to people who are already industry leaders and everything from, neuro-linguistic programming training to all kinds of things like that. They already were great speakers. They came to get better. So we work with anyone and everyone from the most basic up into the most masterful, and a lot of my private clients are those people as well. I just work with each person individually. That's how I make it happen. So it's not a Band-Aid fix-all that I try to run everybody through the same process. I meet each individual where they are and work with them at that level. I also think that's probably one of the things that makes our events unique. It's very difficult, as you probably have found, it's very unique to find someone like us that works with small groups, works with people one-on-one, as opposed to just jamming 100, 200, 500 people into a room and talking to them about how to speak. No transformation comes from that. So our method is pretty unique, but it works for beginners and seasoned pros.
Yes, absolutely. And, this is something I really want to chime in on, because I could talk about this all day long. And if I look back on my entire career, let's say when I started off my online coaching business, transitioning to gaining some steam, getting some momentum, breaking the coveted 6-figure mark. And then from there, kind of finding myself and then going from multiple 6 figures to 7 figures and still growing. And so much people say, you've accomplished so much in such a short amount of time. What is your secret? Is it in the marketing? Is it in the sales? Is it in the delivery? I say, you know what? There's one skill set that I feel gave me all of my success, and that is communication, right? When I meet young entrepreneurs, young, hungry people that want to grow, and they say, how do I make $1 million? How do I do this? How do I grow my business? I say, you know what? Focus on being the best communicator you could be. And I will explain why I say that, and why communication is the most important skill to serve the world, to have more freedom, to get closer with your family, to make more money, whatever you want. But I'm curious, why is communication important for you?
Well, there's no doubt. You hit the nail on the head. It is 100% the most financially valuable skill you can master for yourself. When you look at all the different skills of business, like you said, marketing, sales, they're all vital. And the ability to be a clear, unique, compelling, vibrant communicator it falls into all of those categories. It just boosts you in sales. It boosts you in your marketing. It boosts you in your customer service, in your messaging in general. And so it is kind of the master skill that you can take on from a business standpoint. Here's what I really believe, though, and I don't mean to be airy-fairy about this, but I also believe that there are some of us who were put here for a grander calling. And I believe that when that calling stirs inside of a person, they cannot turn away from the light, so to speak, once that thing has been stirred up. They must share that gift. They must share that message. Maybe something has happened to them in their life that they can carry learning and help others who have been through a similar thing, and that's stirred up inside of them. They need to bring it forth. I know that for myself, certainly in the early stages of learning, I felt that calling and the frustration, the embarrassment, everything that came with not having the skill to communicate powerfully and to move others emotionally, to shift their thoughts and change their outlooks, and more importantly, to do things differently, as I said, as a result of that message. I remember that frustration. I remember wanting the words to come out and not being able to find them. And so I really believe that when that calling comes forth for people as well, that we owe it. We owe it to mankind, womankind. We owe it to humanity to give our gift. And to shrink away from that calling is almost a sacred violation of that moment, if you will. And so again, at the risk of sounding airy-fairy, I think it's something that when it calls forth for people, we must follow it. We owe it to the world. We owe it to every other soul to bring that thing forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was thinking about from the dawn of time, the individuals who had the biggest impact were master communicators, right?
Yes.
Gandhi, the Mother Teresa, even to the modern day, whether you like them or not, Obama and Trump, these are master communicators. Martin Luther King, I could go on and on and on, but these individuals move the masses, right? They persuaded people to their point of view.
Yes.
Millions, even billions, saw the vision that they didn't see themselves, and they were moved into action. Now, that is a powerful skill to have.
Yes, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And, they're the people that we historically, again, all political thoughts aside, they're the people that we call leaders.
Leaders.
Now, here's what I really believe. I also believe that we are entering a time, as we sit here doing this, sharing this time together, we are also entering a time where a higher calling for leadership is upon us. I really believe that a lot of the models of people that we've typically called leaders for the last 5 or 10 decades, those old myths and those old styles are being exploded, and what's being called forth is a new, deeper calling for what is a leader. And the one thing, though, that it will share in common with all of the leaders of the past is this gift of being able to move people, to stir people, to create emotion, to the point that people don't just say, oh, standing ovation. Oh, AJ, great speech, great talk, buddy. But instead, as the old story goes from antiquity, it's when they stand up and they say, let us march. Let's march. Let's go forth. Let's do something differently. Let's conquer something. Let's change something. Let's right a wrong. Whatever the case may be, it's getting people to stand up and march. That's the real goal that we're all after as communicators, I believe.
I love that. Love that. And I think that whole essence of getting people up to march, you're essentially inspiring them into action. You know, you're moving them to action, and to get someone off their butt and do something, that is a powerful tool. And I was just thinking, like, a lot of the things that you give people is this sense of like legacy, right? Because when they come into one of your boot camps, you work with them on an immersive level, like you're creating powerful shifts that echo into decades of their life, their business, their families. And of course, we go into the long-term process, but I want to get into some short-term as well, because in this day and age, we have technology, right? So perhaps someone's not planning a seminar anytime soon, but they could go on their phone, right? Hit live and speak. So let's say after this, I'm going to go live. I'm going to hit the live button. I'm going to record a selfie video talking to my audience. What tips can you give me right now to have a bigger impact?
Okay, the number one thing I would say, first and foremost, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is this. Number one, know your outcome. Know the result that you want to create during that time. That is first and foremost, clearly the most important thing to have. So what do I mean by that? Well, the term outcome, it's a term from NLP, really is where it became popular, neurolinguistic programming, back in the late 80s and 90s. And it's usually a term that is spoken about in a past tense. So normally we say, well, what was the outcome of that conversation that you had with somebody? Meaning that something that happened in the past. What I'm suggesting is that we use it instead as a terminology to decide on our future, what we want to look back on, if you will. It's a bit of a mind fry. But I think it really matters, because then we can get a clear picture of, as the old saying goes, how we'll begin with the end in mind. We'll take a look at where's the end result that we're going for. So having a clear statement of outcome or result for what you want to accomplish, possibly writing that down. And then the second thing, AJ, that's really vital, that seems so simple, but people forget it, is know who the hell you're talking to. Who is your audience? You can have the most well-crafted message on earth, and delivered to the wrong crowd, you're not going to be as effective as you could. So know who it is that you're talking to, but most importantly, know your outcome, know the result you want to get. Be clear on that. You'll find the words. You'll figure out what to say.
Wow, that's powerful. I love that framework. It's something that you obviously right before you hit the record button, you hit live, you want the outcome, and then it just flows out of you. And the second thing I want to talk about is knowing your audience, because I made a video on this. I was taking a poll of my audience, and I said, what is your take on cursing, right? Because if I decide, you know what, I'm going to drop an F-bomb every 5 seconds, but my audience is deeply offended by that, then I screwed up. But what is your take on that? I'm just curious on cursing in content, speaking on a public level.
Okay, it's a couple of fold. Number one, I'm in agreement with you, and some people disagree with me on this. This is just where I stand. So take this as Joe's opinion, if you will. Number one, I tend to share that with you, that if I am speaking to a group of people that are easily offended by harsh language, I will really reel that in myself. Now, trust me, I have the biggest sailor potty mouth on the face of the earth when I get going. So I have to think about doing that. I think there is truth. My father used to say when I was growing up that vulgar language is the tool of a lazy mind. I also believe there is some truth to that, AJ, although I am guilty of it. I will say that at the same time. Secondarily, though, I know that when I say, fuck, this, or without actually saying it, but pretty close, I guess. Or, it's effing this, or it's effing that. It also instills and brings forth an emotion in me that might be necessary in the moment. So how do you balance that if you're in front of a group? I've got a good friend, and he will go nameless because many people listening to this will know his name. And he's as guilty as I am about pulling out the F-bombs and things like that when we shouldn't. And he literally retrained himself to say with the same tone of voice, the same inflection, the same power, if I'm freaking this or that, and he taught himself to say that in the place of. And so he could walk into places where that language was not appropriate, and he could say freaking or what the freak, and he would not offend people, yet he would still pull forth that emotion from himself that he was looking for. I thought that was a great tool, and I use that type of thing myself a lot. So does that answer your question?
Yes. Cool. Crystal clear. I appreciate that.
Cool.
And a big component of this show, and really what I base a lot of my life's work on, is really understanding people's superpowers. And I would love for you to share with the audience, right? Joe, what is your superpower?
I would say, well, I think I have several, but I would say in this arena, specifically the arena of when I'm working with somebody as a communicator, as a world-class speaker, it is finding their unique talents, gifts, skills, strengths, abilities, their own unique, if you will, genius, and getting them into a place where they own that. They step into a flow and a groove when they're communicating, where the stage fright, the fear, the anxiety that maybe has held them back and has blocked that superpower, if you will, in the moment because they were scared, they were nervous, or they just were trying too hard maybe to impress others, and they thought they had to be a certain way, and so therefore they weren't really owning their uniqueness. They weren't owning their genius. They weren't owning in their absolute best flow and groove state, as I said, who they could be as a communicator that could touch people as only they could, because of the stage fright, the fear, the overwhelm, the whatever it might be, or just because they were trying to be a certain way. They blocked their own superpower. Mine is bringing that forth, getting people to own it, and getting them really clear on how to get back to that flow and groove state whenever they need to as a communicator. That I would say. Sure, polishing off some rough edges. Here's what I also find, AJ, this makes me really different from a lot of people in this realm, is I find, though, that almost no mistake is unforgivable. If a person says for instance, once or twice when they're speaking, that's not a problem. It's when they say it over and over and over again. If they move with purpose, that's great. It's when they rock back and forth idly in front of the room that it becomes something that causes a break in connection. The only mistakes, here's my belief, the only real mistakes that matter for speakers are those that cause them to have a break in connection with the people that have given us the honor and privilege of their time and attention. If we break that connection with those people, then we can't get in there, we can't serve them, we can't touch them in the deepest possible level. So anything that you might do one off here and there, I don't consider that stuff a mistake. I consider that what makes you you, and it should be embraced. Sometimes the person who puts a hand in a pocket for a moment is more natural than someone who doesn't ever allow themselves to do anything like that. Although that's primarily the method for teaching presentation skills and public speaking, that for a long time, that was really the norm in that world. I have a very different way in which I work with people. As long as they're not breaking connection and becoming distracting by doing something, I let them do it because it's authentically and naturally them.
I love that. And I was thinking from my own personal experience, I love getting feedback every time I speak or I perform. And I was asking, what's your favorite part? And it's interesting. Most people say the moments when I veer off the structure and I'm just in this like rant, I'm just flowing. I lose track of time and space. And I'm like, I'm not even going in my slides. I'm talking about something random. I'll tell a story or I'll tell a joke, but that's what they love, you know? And I was fascinated by that, because let's say they're coming to a seminar to learn how to grow an online coaching business. I'm not even talking about marketing or the sales or any of the infrastructure. And I'm just telling a random story of an experience I had, but they light up when I'm just in this lost state of flow off tangent.
Yep. Absolutely, man. I mean, it's why we connect. It's why we're moved by those great communicators. We were moved not so much by their words. We were moved because of how they made us feel. And so as well, that's what I really try to help people do. I really try to help people shape within their audience how that group feels, and get them to emit or evoke, I should say is a better word, evoke an emotion that was not otherwise there. Bring that forth, and then have some sort of call to action. I mean, this is old time, sales and marketing 101. Then you got to give them a call to action. And what that means is what you're asking others to do as a result of that emotion. And you put those things together powerfully, and you can lead and you can change your world.
That is profound. Yes. And you have like decades of experience. I mean, you've spoken on some really big stages, and you've helped so many people. You're like the behind the scenes for a lot of influencers today. And I would love to get your insights. Like, what feedback do you have for me on how I could become better?
Well, here's what I would say. From what I've seen of you so far, here's some things you do well. You have fantastic energy. You have that fantastic passion and enthusiasm. Now, I say this up front on what you do well, because one of my other beliefs really, AJ, is when people go to try to get better as a speaker, as a presenter, one of the most common things people tend to do, I tend to do, all of us do, is think about what we did wrong, mistakes that we made, things like that. Here's the truth. We can only build on our successes. You can only really build on what you do well in any area of life. So let's take your energy, your passion, your enthusiasm, your excitement. Those are important. You don't want to let those things downplay. Obviously, there'll be some professional environments where you may not turn it on quite as hard as when you're leading your own events and things like that. I would say here's a little thing that is kind of interesting. So a lot of people, this is a really common thing a lot of people do, is you may need to watch, and I've only seen a limited amount of you live in front of a group, but you may need to watch, for instance, what's called parallel gesturing. People, those of us that have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of passion for our subject matter, when we go to gesture, we can do commonly what's called parallel gestures. So in other words, you're kind of like, if you remember John Madden, the football commentator back from the 90s, he would say, and he got the ball and he ran down the field and he did this. And if you're not seeing me right now, I'm making the exact same gesture with both hands, as though there were a mirror in one half of my body that was just mirroring the exact same movements with both hands. Parallel gesturing. Some parallel gesturing is really great to do, but you want to mix it up. You want to be able to switch off and sometimes just use one hand here and another hand on another side, and not always be that football player, hands in front of you, doing the exact same thing on the right and left side of your body with your right and left hand. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. I've never heard of this before. I'm fascinated by it.
Well, hey, dude, that's what I get paid for. That's what people come to me for, those little things as well. It's not all just the big things. But yeah, so parallel gesturing, watch out for that. Let me be clear, AJ, it is a necessary, great thing to do. You don't want to have that become the only thing you do, though, to the point that it just becomes repetitious to the point of, here's a good way to put this. Have you ever seen somebody who was trying to get people's attention in a loud room, and they did it by just yelling more loudly for a longer period of time and still didn't get any attention? Sometimes it's the silence that punctuates a moment, and in that case will actually bring attention to something. With parallel gesturing, if that's all you ever use, people get habituated to seeing it. That's all they see anymore. So there's a richness and a depth of different styles that you want to bring into things as small as your gesturing process. Not unnaturally, not in a rehearsed, scripted way with your gestures, although some speaking teachers teach people to do that, to script out their gesturing and rehearse them that way. I don't subscribe to that. But by the same token, you don't want to slip into anything that you're just doing over and over and over again to the point of overuse. Parallel gesturing might be one of those things for you to watch out for, because for those of us that are passionate and enthusiastic, we have a tendency to parallel gesture.
Wow. I got my money's worth for this interview already.
Hey, whatever.
No, there's stuff like this. Like you're so kind to offer results in advance. Like you're adding value to me tremendously, and I cannot imagine being at your event. Because I take this seriously. I want to become the best communicator possible. So I've devoted, actually last year I started doing stand-up comedy. I take improv classes, acting classes.
Awesome.
And I want to be the best in the world at what I do. And I'm going to come to your event because what you just told me just blew my mind. And now every single speech, every single video, I'm going to be aware of my parallel gesturing. I'll just be asymmetrical from now on.
Well, kudos to you for the stand-up and then improv. Improv is a phenomenal tool. I do it. I studied it myself because studied it. Now you don't study improv. You do improv is what you do. But anyway, the point is, there's an aspect of being a great communicator called utilizing anything that comes at you. I was just with some clients earlier this week, and I was giving them an example. I was on stage, unfortunately, in Southern California the day of the San Bernardino shootings, and it happened right down the street from where we were. And I was on stage, and I had a gentleman in the audience who looked at his phone, and he raised his hand, and I didn't realize what was going on. He said, "Hey, I just wanted to let everybody know, by the way, that there's been a shooting. The people who did it are at large, and they're in our area." And that's all he said. And so now I'm at the front of the room, and anybody who's ever done a lot of speaking can relate to this. Now you're left with, okay, how do I handle that? What do I do with that? And the choice is either, shrink away from something like that, or use that moment to actually build on something more. That's where practicing improv and learning improv and being part of an improv group can come in, because in improv, you take anything that's handed to you, as you know, and you build upon it. It's all yes and. That's what the whole world of improv is built on. And the world of great communication is the same way. You talk about when you deviate from your slides and you tell a story or this or that, that's utilization of the moment, AJ. And that is why you get such a great feedback from that, is because that's where some of our best material comes, if we're committed to adding value to people. Not just if we're telling stories to tell stories or telling jokes to tell jokes, but if we do it because we have a commitment to add real value to people who are with us, then a lot of those riffs are where the real magic can come out.
I love that. And, one thing that I do on a daily basis is to increase my speed of being quick-witted, right? I'm so fascinated with people that on the fly, they come up with the right timing, the right joke, and it's like hilarious. And, throughout the day, I practice. And one thing I do is actually freestyle rapping. So I started doing it a few years ago. And I'll just rap and I'll rhyme over and over and over. And it was very difficult. It's very difficult to do initially. I was always fascinated by a hip hop artist that could rhyme for like 10, 20, 30 minutes straight. And I realized, what if I practice? So in my living room, I have a surround sound system. I have this beat that's playing, and I'm just reciting emotionally what comes to mind. But what's happening, I realize, is my brain is cognitively speeding up, moving, getting the words, getting the rhymes, boom, 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 boom. And then when I do an interview, I'm a lot quick-witted. I'm faster. The right words come out. I don't have to think as much. And that's all.
Absolutely.
Don't think. Let it flow.
That's fantastic, man. I've never heard that specifically used, and I love that. That is fantastic, because you are exactly right. I mean, keeping up on, really keeping quick with, neuroplasticity expansion is really what you're talking about. You know what I mean when I say neuroplasticity, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? So that's all you're doing. Exactly. And it's so easy for us, especially with these wonderful devices that all of us have that keep phone numbers, for instance. I mean, I tried the other day, someone asked me, about, could you call your parents, for instance? I don't even think I could call my parents. I don't know their number anymore off the top of my head. And yet, by having all that information in our hand, sometimes we shut down that continual learning and that quickness of mind and wit that you're talking about. Rapping is phenomenal, dude. I'm jealous. That's nothing I've ever thought about doing, nor have tried. But hey, who knows? Maybe I'll subject my wife to having to litter my dog, maybe.
Well, just a heads up, I'm recording a rap album this year, so
Awesome.
I know,
Well,
I'm challenging myself. And like, I don't care to be a popular rapper or to win a Grammy. I just want to be a better communicator. And
Absolutely.
on the journey of recording the rap album, I'll have better speeches, better lives, better interviews, a better communicator.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Love it.
And on one of my challenges is to come to your event. I know you're having one coming up soon in a few weeks. Master your message. We are.
It is April 6th, 7th, and 8th of 2018 here in Denver, where we are. And we have, as we sit here right now, we have a few spots available still in that. So we would love to have anybody who's ready to take their speaking and their presentations absolutely not just to the next level, but out of the freaking park.
Who is this event good for? Who's like your ideal candidate?
Well, as I said, we work with everybody from beginners all the way up to seasoned professionals. And what that looks like is really one of two things. Either number one, they're a person who might currently be a coach or be in be an author, be in the expert realm, and they want to get their message out to groups. They want to be as powerful as they can in that way. Or maybe they want to do their own live events. We work with a lot of people that do those. Secondarily, the other type of people that we do a lot of work with are successful professionals and entrepreneurs, business owners who just want to be the best they can be when they speak at industry events, at conventions, at trade shows, at any time they may be called upon. Maybe they're going to be doing a publicity or even raising venture capital. I work with a lot of people in that world as well. So either A, they are coaches, authors, experts, consultants themselves, or they're successful business people or business owners. They just want to be the absolute best when called upon to speak. Wow, I can't imagine, because being with you live in an immersive environment where you're helping me and seeing my blind spots in a short amount of time, like whatever you rubbed off on me, I feel like I've become a better communicator as a result of this interview. You raised something that's a great point here for us to start to, I guess, conclude with, and that is blind spots. Because yes, man, having somebody that can help you grow through your blind spots that A, maybe have been holding you back, but I would argue, honestly, AJ, more importantly, B, blind spots to your greatness, blind spots to your genius. That is my job when I work with people, really is what I feel is, yes, I help them overcome blind spots that have been holding them back, or even things they realize that have been holding them back. But the real game is we've all had somebody, I think, who saw more in us than we saw in ourselves at some point in our lives. That is the gift that I strive to give all of our clients, is I try to find their blind spot to their greatness, their blind spot to their genius, their blind spot to that which can be unleashed on the world to make it a better place because they lived. That is my job. Wow. There's no amount of money you can pay for that. That's a powerful transformation that we'd all, it's like, I forget the word, but it's indispensable, essentially. You know? I actually wanted to come to this event, but I'm hosting a seminar, but I wanted to come to another one because I'm busy that weekend. How often do you have these events? Like, where can I go to find out more about them? Sure. We do a couple of them a year. The rest of our year is spent working with people one-on-one. That's a large part of what we do. So executives, celebrities, people like that, I work with one-on-one, as well as everyday people who, for some reason, maybe cannot make one of our live events, like in your case. And so, but they want to go ahead and get started as well. So we do 2 or 3 live events. They're very small events, though. I will tell you this. Number one, I will not work with more than 15 people at a time in one of our live events. It's very intimate. We do 2 to 3 of those a year. And then everything else is one-on-one, or in a corporate environment. I still do quite a bit of corporate training as well in the presentation skills realm. You can find out more about what we do just at joewilliamsonline.com, or hit me up on Facebook. Great. I'll add that in the show notes, in the comments as well. joewilliamsonline.com. And also, is this all in person? Do you also offer virtual coaching? Yeah, I do some virtual as well. The way that I prefer to do it, I don't have pre-recorded video virtual courses. I am a purist when it comes to this. I think you can tell, and probably to a certain extent, probably to my own defeat in some arenas, because people are always saying, hey, why don't you write a book? Why don't you put out a course? This or that. Here's what I'm really pure about, though, AJ, is one of the reasons you've heard so much about what we do is because I won't compromise on how I work with people. So the answer is, yeah, I do work with people virtually here over Zoom, platforms like that, Skype, things like that. Yes, so that I do that as well. But I don't have a lot of pre-recorded material out there that people can just sit and watch while they eat a box of popcorn and think they're going to get better as speakers. I keep people on their toes and actually get them up and speaking when I work with them even virtually.
Well, obviously that method works because you have the incredible results, and that's what you're known for. You have this powerful reputation in our community. And speaking of reputation, I'm going to end off the podcast with a bit of a deep question, because I'm looking at that beautiful plaque behind you, driven by the long game. So I am curious, right? You're a living legend right now, Joe Williams, but looking forward into the rest of your career, what do you want to be remembered for? What does Joe Williams want to be remembered for as a legacy on this earth?
Well, I really believe I will be remembered for a lot of things. I've had some incredible opportunities through my life. You mentioned the time that I spent working with my friend Tony and others, and that was all incredible. As far as legacy specifically around helping people more powerfully share the gifts that they were destined to bring to their own life and to others' lives as a result of them sharing their message. If I can be remembered as the person that just helped those that I served be able to free that message and be able to more powerfully share those gifts that they've got than they could have otherwise, I'll be really, I would be honored to be remembered in that way, in some way. And I'll keep running my ass off to be able to make sure I am remembered that way.
That is powerful. Thank you, Joe. This was an incredible interview. Like I said, I got a lot of value from it, but just asking the questions. I feel like a better communicator in this short amount of time. But I look forward to attending one of your events and immersing myself and you seeing all my blind spots.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and we'll look forward to seeing you and working with you soon, man.
Sounds good.
Thanks a lot.